it's true. By definition, corporations are not loyal to you. And that's okay, as long as they treat you fairly and they're true to their commitments. You need to take an active stance with your career and not leave it to chance. Otherwise, you will either have a career that you hate or you'll not have a great career at all. Hello, I'm Michael Denisoff, CEO and Principal Director of Denisoff Consulting Group, an international consulting firm dedicated to innovating organizations and how they are managed. I have spent my entire career helping companies perform better, be more successful, and grow strong, striving cultures. And this is possible, but only if we are really honest about how corporations work. So welcome to Work Trauma, How Corporations Really Work podcast, where we pull back the curtain to let you know what is really going on at companies so you can make good decisions about who you work for, how you navigate your career, and if you are a leader, how to build better, fairer, and more successful organizations. On this episode, we continue our conversation with career expert and all-around amazing person, Julie Balki. So let's get back to where we left off. All right, everybody, welcome back to part two of our conversation with Julie Balki today on the Work Trauma, How Corporations Really Work podcast. Julie, part one, man, you got me, I'm fired up. I was so fired up.
Thank you.
Just about companies. Because I like what you say, because one, not only do I see it, I agree to experienced it. We talk about a lot of the same things, but you breathe this just very common sense thoughts and emotion into it. It's not like hate the company. It's just like, got to see it for what it is. So I think that's what I want to kind of jump in with you, because I know you help so many people. I think it's so funny how this stuff works. So Monday, which is a few days ago from this recording, I had to go in and give blood because I have my annual exam. And the person who takes my blood, Patricia, we always have the best talks. Everybody makes fun of us. I go in there for at least an hour. We talk about life and stuff. And we're talking about work, and I'm telling a little bit about the podcast. And she's like, my husband's really got it down. I said, what do you mean? I said, well, he was in the military, so I think he just kind of sees things differently than a lot of people. I said, Patricia, tell me more. He kind of sees these people aren't going to change, that nothing's going to be different, so he's kind of created his little cutout, and he's upper in the company. He's not at the highest executive levels, but he's a higher executive. And he just kind of sees it for what it is, and he's able to compartmentalize it. And I'm like, man, I wish I was more like that. Because when I go to a company, I'm like, I want to change it. I want to make it great. And when the CEO gives a speech like, we're going to be the best, I'm like, oh yeah, we are. I'll do anything for you. And then of course, that's not what's really happening at the upper ranks. They're just kind of taking care of themselves and protecting themselves. But so what do you tell people to say, hey, listen, you just said it, right? You want to have purpose and meaning in your work. I mean, we're there most of our lives, more than when we see our family in a lot of ways.
True.
So we have to be congruent with the company and what we're delivering, but we also can't surrender like you said so beautifully, like our domain, our souls to the company. Mm-hmm. How do you help people kind of find that balance where, because you don't want to just be cynical, like I hate work and work's the enemy, because that's not a good way to live life.
No.
So how do you get people there?
I think the first question you have to ask yourself and answer is what role does work play in my life? There are people, when you look at, if you think about a dinner plate of a main course and sides, there are some people for who their career is their main course. Right. That's where they put most of their efforts. And then maybe they have family, maybe they don't, maybe they have hobbies and community kind of things there. But we all have a dinner plate that's full of different things. And so you have to, first of all, make sure for you, what role does work play in your life? If you are the primary breadwinner, or you are the majority breadwinner, or the only sole breadwinner in your family, then you do have to that needs to be more of your effort. And it may not be that way for your whole career, but maybe it is right now. And so I think the bigger role work plays in your life, the more of an obligation or responsibility that you have to make sure you're in the right role. Because when you're in the right role at the right company, you can be in the right role at the wrong company.
Yep. Nice.
And you will fail. Or you can be in the wrong role at a great company, and now you maybe have an opportunity to find a different role because you love the company. Yeah. And so it's all those things together. And so when you look at if you get your real if you get all of your meaning from work you do in your community, and that's where all of your work, all of your effort outside of work goes, then maybe being happy at work is not as important to you. Maybe it's just about making sure that I'm continuing to do good work, but I want to just stay right here and do it. And that's all good, because then I can kind of ignore the other stuff going on around me.
Yeah.
because I get my needs met, my heart and soul over here working with the Boys and Girls Club or something.
Yeah.
And so it's understanding that we all have these different sectors we all have different sectors in our lives, and we have to make sure we're giving a proportionate amount of energy and focus to the things that, it in the right proportion. And for other people, work is everything. They want to get to that top spot. They want to get to that C level, whatever that might be.
Right.
And so in that case, it might be more important for you to put more time and effort into your work, to focus on the culture you might want to work in. And so it's for each person, it's a different formula. And so you have to be really aware of, you can be unhappy at work and be fine with it.
Right.
Because that's not where you get your identity.
Yes. You have something outside.
Yeah. So first you have to decide, what does that mean for you? And then figure out, what does that mean then that you can expect or accept or ask for from your environment? It's just a job. There are plenty of people who feel that way. And that is okay. But you've got to get clear about where you stand and what it's for you. But if you're going to get all of your meaning and purpose from work, then you better be darn sure about what meaning and purpose looks like for you, and you go look for it, in the company, the culture, the place that you're going to work.
Wow. I got goosebumps. I wish I met you early in my career.
You had a chance to, but you ignored all those smart people.
No, even earlier for that. When I was like, no, but it is, but you're trying to fit in, you're trying to do well, trying to excel, but you don't want to. And if you're a person, which I think most people, they want to live congruent with who they are.
Yeah.
Right. And they'll push down a little bit, or as my mom would say, I would scrub toilets for you kids. We love you so much. Right. You got to do what you got to do sometimes, and not perfect.
Of course. That's a great example.
Right. But at some point, though. Yeah. You can't debase yourself, right? And I think most people, they'll debase themselves, whether with an unhealthy company or an unhealthy boss, because they feel like they have no choice or no options. Thank God we live in a world with more options. At least job market's down now, but now we could go to different places, do stuff. But you'll debase yourself for a while before it kind of wears its toll. Matter of fact, when I was putting this podcast together, I did not know what I was going to call it. And then I just got a new coaching client, and in the first session I'm like, oh, what brings you to want coaching, blah blah blah, and tell me about yourself, tell me about your background. And his response was, well, I've been working in the corporate world for 30 years, so like everybody, I have a bit of work trauma.
Yeah, I love it.
Big. And this guy was great, super talented, but you when he opened up, you could tell the damage that was done to his psyche. And I'm not saying. And he wasn't a snowflake. He wasn't a wimpy guy. I'm talking real damage where he was, demeaned and debased by the people who could do it. Sometimes they did it for preservation. Sometimes they did it because they could. And they they had a little sadomasochism, sadist in them. So I think that's brilliant on your part. But to do that, you really have to take the time to do that. And how would you tell people how to figure that out? Is it just being quiet? Is it writing? Is it reading? What do you think?
Yeah, it's all those things. It's I would, and here's the thing I would tell you, Michael, too, is it depends on where you are in your life. When you're 22, you're just getting started, 22, 23, 24.
Yeah.
Let's say you get into your 30s, you have kids. There's a health problem in your family. Maybe you discover an interest outside of work that that you want to. So the idea of like this whole dinner plate is like moving things around. Increasing and decreasing the portions. And so you want to, and here's people, one of the mistakes people make is they try to come up with the all-being and all-knowing answer for the rest of their lives.
Nice.
But really good career paths are a series of pivots. Nice.
Brilliant.
That you align. So we already know we live our lives in chapters, before kids, after kids, but elderly parents, now they're gone, kids are gone. We live our lives in chapters. You have to live your career in chapters as well. And so you can make different decisions about where work fits into your life and what you need from work and what else is important to you. You can keep moving. You can keep changing it. And this is one of the things my book for women is going to be about, because this really resonates with women, because we're the ones who get who have the majority of the elder care and the child care responsibilities and the
Right.
home responsibilities.
Right.
And so you can say right now, maybe as a young person in my 20s, I'm going to work really hard in my career. And then I would like to get married in my 30s, maybe have kids, maybe then I'll move it around a little bit. So you can do this the whole time. And so it's a question you can keep asking yourself. So just take a look at where you are today. Just take a Polaroid. Google it if you don't know what that means, youngins. But take a Polaroid. What's important to me today? What's important to me right now? And make your career decisions based on that. And then that will come to an end, whatever that is. We're not meant to get on a ladder at age 22 and climb it until we're 62. We're just not. I think that's the source of the misery that we see in people. So think about, what chapter am I in? What's important to me right now? What's most important to me right now? What are my priorities right now? And then how can I serve those priorities?
Yep.
And you have to get creative with it sometimes. And yes, you're still going to go through times when you feel like your hair's on fire all the time, especially you have little ones at home.
Oh yeah. You know that.
And you just have to survive that. But it does come to an end. Eventually they go to school and you have different problems with them, but it's not diapers anymore. And so that's true with really all parts of our lives. We may have elderly parents who get sick at the same time. I have a friend who went through that. She's an only child. She's the only one dealing with two really difficult parent situations. And so she's a therapist. She's had to cut back on her practice in order to take care of this because there's nobody else out there to do it for her or with her.
You're killing me. It's so wise what you're saying. And yet when you're 22, 23, whatever, or you're coming out of college, or getting your MBA early, you think you're on this linear track, right? That's constantly consistent and builds and builds. And it's funny because we know life's not like that. We know our life changes, right? Sometimes, when you're young, you tend to want to live in the city. You get older. I'm like, I want to live in the country, or at least suburbia. Things change. But it's funny, so many of us, at least me, you kind of, when you're starting off, you just think there's a track. And that's your track. And you're one of those track cars like at the carnival for 3-year-olds. You're got it. And that's it. And if something pulls you off of it, it's, oh my God, when it went off and when things pulled me off my track, it was, in hindsight, it was a huge blessing because I was in a place where I didn't really want to be. Or it was time. It was just time to move on. I remember when I left Covey Leadership Center, which was a dream job. I got to hang out with Stephen Covey. I was doing all this crazy, really good stuff at a young age. I was presenting. But there was one point when my mentor there said, you need to leave. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I know what you want to be when you grow up. You can't do it from here. I'm like, what? My whole world. And then then I reluctantly did it. I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a brilliant move. But it's hard when you're in it.
Yeah. One of the things that I always think about from my days in outplacement, where for 9 years I've worked with people who've just been told we don't need your services anymore, is that the vast majority, I'm saying in the 80%, of people would say to me at some point, they did me a favor.
Yeah, I get that. I've heard that.
I wasn't happy. They did me a favor. I said, yeah. So I think the fact that you were unhappy was not a secret. Maybe that's why you were on the list. Maybe you weren't performing well. Right. And so they waited until it happened to them instead of taking the initiative to move to something else on their own.
It's brilliant. Yeah, I've had more people come to me and say, not at the moment, 6 months, a year later, it was the kick in the pants I needed.
Yep.
I didn't see it at the time. So yeah, that's interesting because I think part of your message is, and if it's not telling you, life is bigger than your job, right? Yeah. And it's hard. And even if your job is your main thing, still life is bigger than your job.
It is. And boy, it's just not, there are times when when your job is gonna feel like your life, and that's okay. Yeah. But I don't think you want a steady diet of that for 40 plus years, because you're gonna get to your 60s, and I see it now with people my age who are trying to figure out what's next. They're thinking about retiring, but they don't know what to do. Like because in the old days, you would work for 40 years, you'd have your little goodbye party in the conference room, and then you go home and sit on the porch or in the lazy boy, and you die. And that was kind of, what happened.
Yeah. No, like I said, I go back to, I'm kind of jealous of, I remember in 2004, I met this girl and her husband, and I just thought they were awesome, cool people. And what they did is for a year, they saved their money, they sold all their furniture, and they wanted to travel the world for a year.
Yeah.
They wanted to do it before their knees went out and before they had kids. And I'm like, well, how's that affect your career? And like, who cares? You know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember I was so impressed with that. That was in the days that they would have posted on their little website about where they were, and I tracked them for a year. And that was amazing. That was a time for me where I took some time off to go live on an Indian reservation in South Dakota for 9 months because and looking back, I couldn't put a price on that, right? No career, no $1 million. I just couldn't put a price on it for the experience I had. But
it used to be that doing something like that was career suicide, but it's
was.
not anymore. Now, when people talk about that, they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. And so you get more envy and jealousy now than what's wrong with you? Why aren't you committed? So it's all changed.
And that's why I really Tom Peters said this years before it was true, but Tom Peters always said, because he would always cuss a lot, but he always said, I never trusted anybody with at least one unexcused absence on the resume.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that.
I love that.
I love that. But that was before its time, because I remember when I first got back from the reservation, people would either get it or they wouldn't. And you saw it right away in the job interview. Yeah. They would either say, oh, that's really awesome. Or like, why would you do that? And like, oh, this is over. But now I think you're right. I think a lot of people more have appreciate for it. And the other thing too is what I learned is as you get older, you realize life happens. You do get that time where maybe you have a death of a parent, God forbid, or they get sick and you have to shift, and you might have an unexcused absence. And if I always tell people, hey, if your hiring manager can't appreciate that, you don't want to work for them anyway.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Oof. Very true.
So, and then I don't want to touch on this. So inside, I'm a big fan, like I said, of what we try to do on Work Trauma. Just try to tell it like it is, so people have an accurate reading of how things work. So I want to talk a little bit about getting promoted internally. Like, and I've been in those succession planning meetings, and they're everybody thinks when people are discussing, well, there's Julie and Michael, let's put them on this 72-point criteria with this algorithm based on this big computer program, and it's not like that at all. It's generally like, yeah, what do you think about this Denisoff guy? Pretty good, or I don't know. And I've seen careers dead on arrival when somebody kind of rolls their eyes, and I'm like, and now when I was a practitioner, because I myself am a recovering HR executive, when I was a practitioner, I would always say, hey, you rolled your eyes, you got to defend that, because it was clear that person just took down that person's career with a roll of the eyes. Now, very few HR people do that, because HR people are HR people. But I let them know a lot of it's just, for me, it's just like making sure you do great work. Your boss is cool with you, and there's people outside your boss area that know who you are, know your talents. What would you say for people in terms of working their career internally?
Yeah, that's managing your career where you are is a separate set of skills.
Yeah.
And there's good and bad news to it, because as you said, everybody, let's say you go interview with a brand new company where you know no one, you are as pure as the driven snow to them. Yeah. They know nothing about you.
No, you don't know your words.
Only your words, and they might, check references or something or look at LinkedIn. But that's why a lot of times companies hire from the outside, because the people on the inside have baggage and reputation. Well, we all have it. And so that when you're inside an organization, it's really important that you manage your reputation, that you are clear how people see you, that you're clear what people see as your value. What are the good things about Michael? What are the things that Michael needs to develop? You have to manage your reputation where you are. You have a reputation, we all do. And so how do you manage that? Well, you make sure that you are clear with what your value is to the organization. You know what your accomplishments are. You know where you add value, to just say. And you make sure that you're having conversations with the people who have the biggest impact on your career. So women especially are bad at this, tooting their own horn. Yep. They're better at just saying, well, if I just work really hard and do good work, they'll notice me. You also have to get comfortable explaining. You have to get comfortable sharing your accomplishments. Yeah. So if you're employed by a company, you're there for a reason. They see value in you.
Right.
If not, you'd be gone. And so presumably, but do you know what that value is? Can you state that value? Why do they keep you around? Very few people can answer that question. It's because, I'm seen as a really conscientious project manager who gets the best out of people. Specifically, we did this thing recently. So what is it people value? What is your value? You've got to know that. And because if you don't know your value and can't communicate it, how do you expect other people to? You don't want to put your career in their hands. So that's part of it. So that's what's your value today. And the second thing I would tell you about managing your career internally is, do you know where the company's going and how your skill set and your value helps push them along down that path? So how are you a part of the company's future? Can you articulate that? Do you know where the company's going? Do you know where your department is headed? Do you know what the new initiatives are for 2026? Do you know how you fit into that plan? And do the others around you know that? Have you talked to people about it? Are you keeping your skills sharp? If you're just sitting around waiting for somebody to tell you what you need to go learn, you've already lost.
Especially today.
And so that proactivity. So if you're saying, I say to things, like AI, some people, especially people who are a little bit older, are scared to death of AI.
Yep.
Well, instead of being scared of it, why don't you go learn something about it instead?
Yeah.
You don't have to become an expert, but let's say you work in an insurance company in the claims department. How are other insurance companies using AI to settle claims? Go find that out. Go to a webinar, go to a conference, bring it back to work and teach everybody else. And so you have to stay in the game. And then you also have to have conversations with key people about what you want to do more of, less of, and never again. And so it's kind of but once you figure out what you want to do, the question is then, can I get it where I am? Just like your example with Stephen Covey. They said, I know what you want to do, you can't get it here.
Yeah.
That's a great clue that, okay, I've hit where I can go here. And you do get to those places in companies, you look around and say, well, I've kind of done everything I want to do here.
Yep.
Can I reinvent myself and pivot and go do something over here, same company, or is it time for me to leave?
I love it. So what I'm hearing from you,
try to fix it where you are.
Yeah.
Before you leave, before you go on a job search. But
brilliant.
you will find times you can't fix it.
That's amazing. That's amazing advice. So a lot of what I'm hearing from you on this, right, is one, you have to own your career. Nobody's going to own it for you. And you have to be super intentional about it, right? And you can't you can't be passive. And what I love about today, and I love those comments because it's true, and it's easy to get complacent, especially if you're doing well, right? When you're doing bad, it's less easy. But when you're doing well, you get complacent. But what I love about today, like even with your AI example, like not that long ago, one of the motors broke in our hot tub thing in the main bathroom. I don't know how to fix that. But guess what? I went online, I watched 3 videos on YouTube, and my wife thinks I'm a genius, mechanic. I'm not. But if there's anything you want to learn these days, you can. Yes. And it's so easy. And now it's even easier with AI because now you don't have to even read the paper. It'll give you the summary of it. But most of it is cool little these videos to kind of crank you up that could take, really, if you're willing to put in the time, really think about it for you. Not just for the company, right? How this benefits the company, how it benefits you and where you want to go, to your point. Man, it's as easy as anything. There was something, it was I can't remember now, it was a really odd subject. I'm like, man, how the heck am I learning that? I typed it in. I'm like, one, it was not as scary because it wasn't. But it was just foreign, so it was scary. And then I kind of worked through it. I watched a couple videos. I took some notes. I'm like, I totally get it. Did I have command of it? I didn't need to have command of it. I had a pretty good knowledge of it. So, yeah, I love that.
And I even with my kids, I find myself falling into that sometimes. Because I'll keep a list of things I want them to do for me when they're here. And could I do most of them? Maybe if I went and watched some videos, but it's faster for them. But one time I needed help with my son on something for my son. My daughter-in-law goes, why don't you just try? And I love her. I love her dearly.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I probably should just try. She goes, why don't you try? I'm like, I probably should. Then every time I get ready to ask them to help me with something, I'm like, I should just try first, which is good because it keeps your brain sharp. But sometimes it's easier to go, I don't get that, and try to outsource it.
Yeah, no, it is because we've been told to outsource it too. Way back, I have a good friend of mine, one of my groomsmen. He said way back in the '90s, people are really good at computers use the help key a lot because they figure it out on their own and they
Yeah.
become really good at the computer. So that's still true. It's magnified now,
Yeah.
amplified in this world today. Well,
Yeah.
Julie, I cannot tell you. I could go on and on days, and hopefully in the future we'll have you on in a future season. But I can't tell you what a joy it's been, and I think. Well, I know the knowledge that you share, and you do this all the time. It's just smart. It's practical, and it's good because it's not like I said. I love that it's not like companies are evil and they're bad. Like no, companies are what they are, and this is like you got to find your place in it. And each person's going to be a little bit different what that place looks like to them. But you got to go after it. You can't wait around for it. Nobody's going to tell you what it is. You don't want to get to the end of 30 years, though, and say, man, I stayed on this track because I felt obligated
Yes.
to. And
There's a lot of people in that situation.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I still would fall into that because that's what I know. But anyway, real quick story. One time I was on a different podcast, and we had a millennial in there, and we're talking about companies that were going to unlimited PTO. And I said, I can tell you the difference between me and you and unlimited PTO. And she's like, what? I said, I still will keep track of how much PTO I take because I don't want to game the system. And I bet you don't even keep track of it. She's like, no way.
Yeah, I've got a son who's millennial, and he just joined a company that has unlimited PTO. And he's like, God, because I hate that. He said, I'd rather just know how many days I have. And he's probably more like you.
Yeah, I love it.
Like, and there's been studies actually, Michael, that show that with companies that have unlimited PTO, people take less.
People take less, I know, which
Yeah.
is nice. Which to me shows the decency and goodness of people.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like when companies take advantage of that decency and goodness. All right, Julie. One last thing. You want to give out your website so people can check you out?
People can connect with me on LinkedIn or thebaukegroup.com, and it's Bauke.
Excellent. And we'll put that up. I'll make sure I put that in the notes for as well. Well, thank you so much for sharing your brilliant wisdom and you're just decency. You're such a great person with great energy and good stuff. And I appreciate time with you. And I know we'll have you on in the future.
Thanks.
For sure.
Appreciate
All right.
it.
And that concludes today's episode with Julie Balki on Work Trauma, How Corporations Really Work. Thank you. All right. That concludes our conversation with career expert Julie Balki. Man, she is good and know what she's talking about. You really need to take to heart what she says. Hopefully this was very helpful for you. If you like the podcast, be sure to like, share, and follow Work Trauma, How Corporations Really Work. I'm Michael Denisoff. See you at the next episode.